Hello and welcome to the Hoop Heads Podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sunkle tonight, and we are jumping on to talk. I don't know, no NBA, some NBA, NBA.
NBA.
All right,
Yeah.
NBA.
I
So
don't want to
there's
talk about
really
the other thing.
been
So
a dearth of NBA news here over the past week. We did have the exciting near almost signing expected of Kelly Oubre Jr. to the Philadelphia
father
76ers. A
was on the
great,
pod, right?
yeah. We had his dad on, so friend of the pod, Kelly Oubre Jr. going to be replacing James Harden when we'll get to where we think James Harden's going to end up here in a little bit. But you just plug Oubre in, and very similar player to Harden, I think, right?
I think Oubre is probably a little more athletic.
Their sartorial tastes are very similar, I would say. They both have exotic tastes in wardrobes. So, all right, that's enough
Oubre does not
analysis.
have
The
a
Kobe,
Oubre does not have a Oubre does not have a beard, right?
nor does
Does
he
not have a beard.
pass, nor does he pass. So I guess it's all even. So
He's probably a little more athletic than James Harden, though, right?
at this point, I would say probably yeah. At this point.
Depends if Harden's in his fat suit or not, maybe.
That is correct. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what type of suit James Harden decides to wear this season. So Kelly Oubre expected to sign with the Philadelphia 76ers. There really honestly has not been very much NBA news other than that as we head towards.
I mean, okay, so you mentioned it in the is Kobe Altman going to face some kind of punishment from the league? Is he going to get fined? Or
Probably, you would think so. Yeah,
he's
you
going to
would
get
think so.
fined, but he's not going to lose his job, okay?
No, I don't think so. But definitely probably will get fined and there'll
Have to
probably
go
be
to some
some type of,
diversion program.
yeah, I would think so. There'll be some type of internal, I would think.
Like, dude, you're the president of the Cavs. You can't like get in an Uber or like you can't like have a driver or something. Like, I'm just saying, like, come on
Yeah,
now.
it seems odd. It seems odd. I mean, anybody in that position, I guess, again, sometimes you have to feel like your judgment maybe isn't the best. Maybe you think that you didn't have too many and it's okay for you to drive. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know the
Well,
answer to that,
here's
but
a positive from it all, Mike. It said that he was cooperative and wasn't a problem. So at least
correct.
that's it wasn't a huge issue. It was an issue, but not a huge issue, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. So,
all right. All right, so Mike and I were sitting here. I called Mike at I don't know 5:30 on the way home from cross country. Like, Mike, what are we gonna talk about tonight? And he's like, let's just talk about some big name NBA players and where they're gonna end up, where we think they're gonna end up in the next year. And then so Mike sent me some players. So that's what we're gonna do, guys. It's really exciting stuff. It's really just us pontificating on what's gonna happen, and guessing. And I mean, I don't know if we're gonna really keep track of this, but you see
hey,
next
that's a good
year.
idea. Let me get pen and paper right here because I've actually, believe it or not, I've created a heads folder that I have stored away that is going to keep all of our things. So I try to have all these
Oh,
random
great. So what
sheets of
I
things that we're gonna, we'll call each other to task as time moves on to see whether or not these predictions come true, and we'll see. Some of these will agree.
okay. So Mike, here's how I did it. This is how I
Okay.
kind of wrapped my head around this.
All right.
This is guys I for sure think are not going to be where they're currently at.
Okay.
Like, and then there's guys that I think there's a 50-50 shot of where they're going to be at. And
Okay.
there's guys who I think there is no chance in hell they're where they are at right now. Okay.
All right. So you just why don't I you lead with the names. You go with whatever category. I don't know, most interesting, least interesting. You put it
okay,
however
and
you want to put it.
just so we know, we're doing this a year from now. A year from now, right, Mike? That's what we said. We're going to do this
Okay,
a year
sure.
from
A year
now.
from now. A year from now is fine. I guess. Yeah, that's fine. I can go with that.
Because I mean, okay, all right. So I'm going to start with the guys who I think there's no way in hell they're where they're at right now.
Okay.
Okay. First, James Harden.
Okay.
We've already mentioned him on the podcast. I think there's zero chance he's a Philadelphia 76er in a year.
Okay.
His contract is up. He's already says he wants to be out. Now, I'm not saying answering the question that he'll be there this year, whether or not. I just don't think there's any chance in a year from now that he's there.
All
And I
right.
think he ends up in either LA or I can't believe I'm saying this, back in Houston again. I don't think that Houston wants him. I don't think they want to trade for him. But if they can get him for a cheap salary, they'll bring him back. But I think I think he ends up in LA as a Clipper. Mike, where do you think Harden is in a year from now?
Clippers.
Oh, look
So-
at us! Oh no.
I'll put you down for the Clippers.
Yeah, put me for the Clippers. Put me for Clippers.
So we have Harden. We both have Harden to the Clippers. What about Texas and pairing him with Wemby for the Spurs?
No, there's no way
No?
that Popovich would allow that.
Luka?
No.
Pair him with Luka?
No. Okay.
Back in Texas? No.
No.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good with Harden
right.
to the Clippers.
No chance in hell they're at where they're currently at is Dame Lillard. There's no way he's in Portland a year from now. I
Agreed.
don't know where he's gonna. I think he's gonna end up in Miami. I think there's no way anyone else is gonna. There's no leverage for anyone else to trade for him. The Portland are gonna get. I just don't see there's any way. And does he only have 1 year left on his contract, Mike, or is he
No,
like around for like
he's
4?
got way more than that. He's got.
I think
he has at least 2.
Okay,
At least 2.
I have no belief that he's going to be in Portland next year. There's no chance he's in Portland next year. I'm going to pick Miami because that's where it seems like everyone's pointing, and the fact that NBA 2K24 still has the commentary of him being a member of the Miami Heat already. I'm going to insider info. He's going to end up in Miami at some point.
All right, so I think I'm looking at Lillard's contract. He is currently under contract until the year 2020. So he signed a year extension, which would have been for the 25-26 season and 26-27 season. That's a 2-year, $122 million. Good luck to Pat Riley with that one. I think, okay, so you have Lillard to the a Dame to the Heat, right? Because that's what is inevitable. And yet at the same time, I look at it and I say, I'm not really sure that what Miami has to offer really what Portland wants. What is the centerpiece of that trade? And your Portland, you have Anthony Simon, you have Scoot Henderson, and those are guys that you want to have the ball. It seems like Hero's a little bit redundant as the centerpiece of that Dame Lillard trade. Now, maybe Jovic, FIBA World Cup. I believe what he played is Serbian. I believe he's played for the Serbs, maybe. I'm not sure. But
yeah.
So regardless, I just think that Miami makes the most sense because obviously that's where Dame says he wants to go. But I don't think that it makes as much sense coming back the other direction. And Portland's under no obligation to meet Dame's in terms of send me to Miami or I'm not going to report. I mean, it really doesn't matter. That's the point. If I'm Portland, I don't really care where he wants to go. There's always that talk of, well, we got to take care of guys. And if we do that, then the next guy is going to know that we take care of our players even when they're on their way out the door. And I just don't think that there's a whole lot of – I don't think that theory holds a whole lot of water, to be honest. I don't care about how they treated the last superstar on their way out. Want to make money and they want to be able to win, and the rest of it's kind of irrelevant. So I'm not sure that matters. I think it matters more on the other end of it from the standpoint of what teams are going to want to trade for Lillard with the idea he may be disgruntled and not want to go there. So the Heat the favorite, but I think if you're Portland, you're deal him for what Miami is offering, and maybe the better deal out there, either from Miami or from another team. Fine. I just don't know what Miami has to put in that trade that really makes sense with what is trying to do. And so if there should be another team out there, I mean, people tried to get Dame to Milwaukee, but Milwaukee really has no assets to be able to trade for him. Pair Dame with Giannis that would be a nice pairing for those two guys to be able to team up. But I just don't think. And of course, there's another guy that we have on the list, Karl Anthony Towns. There's been the
he's my next one, Mike. Towns. Spoiler alert: he's my next one, and there's no chance he's in Minnesota.
Okay, I agree with you. So look, I think I'm gonna put I'll put Lillard on the Heat as well. So I'll say the same thing that you're saying, but I think I don't think it's in Miami. I think if he goes somewhere else, there could end up being some drama. Or else, it still seems the most likely that he'll be in Miami.
Okay. All right. So my next guy is Karl Anthony Towns. I just don't see him being there anymore. I think they've kicked the tires on this whole thing. And I think it's time for him to go somewhere else. Now, where is that somewhere else? I don't have a great answer for that, Mike. I was trying to think, like, originally, you know what I thought Karl Anthony Towns to the Spurs would be an interesting fit, just because I think Popovich would be able to do something with him. I mean, his track record with players of his caliber and size, and kind of getting him in a spot to succeed, I think would be good. But I don't know that him and Wemby as a combination, it's already been proven. I know Wemby's a different player than Gobert, but does Towns and Wemby make sense? I don't know. I just think that was my initial thought was I think that Popovich could do really good things with him, maybe reinvent him a little bit.
Well, and San Antonio has a lot of players in that mid-range of salary and guys that aren't really superstars, but guys that are good, solid rotation players, that if you're Minnesota and you're trying to build around Anthony Edwards and you're trying to build around what's ever left of Rudy Gobert, that those are the kind of players that you might want. Plus San Antonio, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they also have all their draft capital. Now, whether or not they'd want to give all that up for Karl Anthony Towns is another thing altogether. But I think your point about Popovich and potentially being a guy that could have a positive impact on Cat, certainly when you look at the talent that Cat has and when you think about trying to project him into whatever environment he might go to next, it feels like that Minnesota situation has been, let's just put it, I don't know, unstable, not the best basketball situation over the course of Towns' career. Now, he hasn't necessarily helped that situation, but I think that you would certainly, if you're trying to get the most out of Karl Anthony Towns, you would be looking for a place where he would have a good organization and environment to support him wherever he goes. And San Antonio would certainly fit that notion. So go ahead and continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. So, like, when I'm thinking about other teams that could use him, like, Brooklyn comes to mind, but I don't know that Brooklyn's going to want him. I mean, and there's other big names that are out there for the team like Brooklyn, like a big city. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think it would be hilarious if the Celtics somehow ended up with him, just because I'd love to hear Simmons want to pound his head against the wall with Karl Anthony Towns on his team. I just don't know. I think I said it, and then like I was kind of hemming and hawing on it, but you reaffirming me, I'm going to go with he's going to end up as a Spur. I don't think it's probably where he's going to end up, but it's the only logical place that I can think. Like, I was just trying to think of other places that could use a big like him, and I really struggled. I mean, my other theory was I could just say the same team for all the players, and then one of them would probably be right.
There you go. Yeah, that's a possibility.
But I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna say he's gonna end up as a Spur, Mike.
Okay, so I think what I thought about this, and I guess putting the 1-year cap on it makes it a little bit different. And as I was kind of thinking it through, like some of these guys, clearly, as you're going to talk about, are probably going to be in their same location a year from now. But if you pushed it out to 3 years from now, I think the landscape starts to look a little bit different.
Some of them are going to be retired 3 years from now, Mike.
So the place that I'm looking at, and look, I don't know if it's likely, unlikely. I think to me, Karl Anthony Towns is a player that smart teams, I think, would want to avoid, which is why I'm not sure that he's going to end up with the Spurs, because I think smart teams are going to look at the guy and say he's a tantalizing talent. He has lots of things that we might want, but it seems like there's something missing. Now, maybe the counter argument that you would make to me is that's exactly the type of player that smart teams would want to get Andrew Wiggins as Exhibit A, right? He's in Minnesota. Everybody thinks he's a losing player, thinks he hasn't lived up to his potential. He signs that max contract and gets traded, goes to Golden State, and doesn't become a superstar, but becomes a guy who was very, very important, if not the second best player on their championship team in their run to the title 2 years ago. And so you could make that argument for Towns, that put him in a better environment and he has more success. But I think he's a guy that he is who he is. And so I'm going to put Karl Anthony Towns on the Atlanta Hawks, which is going to speak to another guy that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to have Karl Anthony Towns on the Atlanta Hawks.
All right. So those are my only three that I had on the. I don't see them being there in a year.
Okay.
And a majority of the people on the are 50-50s for me, Mike.
Okay. All right. Let's go with the 50-50s.
Okay. So,
and let's assume that the 50-50 we're going to lean towards they're going to be somewhere else just to make it more interesting.
So I'm going to start with the guy we've already talked about, and so we can just get it over with. Of Harden, or not Harden. Sorry, let me say Harden. LeBron. I'm going to start with LeBron.
All right.
I think it's 50-50 that he's a Laker. I think there's lots of factors that are going to come into that. How successful are the Lakers this year? How's Bronny doing? Is he coming in the league? Or is he staying at USC?
Is he playing basketball?
Is he playing back? Well, he's been cleared, I think, but he's not cleared to play like 5-on-5. If I remember reading that correctly, but I could be wrong.
Well, LeBron was supposedly working out in Rochester, Minnesota, which is where the Mayo Clinic is located. So there was a lot of speculation that Bronny was at the Mayo Clinic getting more testing done and trying to figure out what's happening. And clearly there hasn't been a whole lot of news since the initial burst of his cardiac arrest came across the wire. There hasn't been really much in the way of updates in terms of his health and the projection of whether or not he's going to play. And so I think that's one of the things that, as I've been listening and reading this stuff over the last couple of days, that there's been a lot of people talking about where that line of questioning is going to go on Lakers Media Day and how much LeBron is going to be willing to talk about that, how much he's going to be asked about it, and what he's going to say. So, yeah, clearly Bronny plays into this in a big way. Go ahead.
So, I think there's a chance he ends up in two places, Mike. He's either staying in LA or he's coming back to Cleveland. I don't think he goes anywhere else. He's not going to want. You could make the argument maybe he goes to Miami, but I just don't see him going to that. I think that bridge is burned with Pat Riley. That I don't think Pat Riley would want him back. So I think he's either a Laker or he's a Cav, and there's nowhere else he can be. Because I think there's one
other place he could be, but keep going.
So that's if you're not New York.
Nope. Nope.
I just think there's nowhere else he's going to go. I think he's going to stay a Laker, or he's going to come home and finish his career with the Cavs. He did say he would finish his career with the Cavs. He didn't say it had to necessarily be on that stint, Mike. So I'm going to say it's either the Lakers or the Cavs. Signed, sealed, delivered. That's what I'm going to say.
All right. I would say that you are right in that assessment, in that I think it's most likely that those are the two places where he ends up a year from now. I think there's one more wild card that could be in play.
What conference, Mike?
The Western Conference. The same state.
Sacramento?
No.
Not the Clippers. Golden
Nope.
State?
Golden State.
There's
Telling
there's zero chance.
Okay,
Zero.
I'm telling you. Why do you say that?
He would never.
Buddies, they're buddies. They're all buddies now. They're friends now. They go to each other's weddings.
No. There's no chance that's
Teams
happening.
up with Steph. He needs a couple more titles to try to catch Michael.
No, because then Steph's gonna have more titles than him. No. All those guys will have more titles than him. There's zero chance.
All right.
Zero.
All right.
Point
It's
zero.
fine. That's fine. I think Golden State is on the radar. I think they are on the radar. I'm not saying it's likely. I would put it at about, if I was putting percentages on it, I'd say 60% the Lakers, maybe even 70% the Lakers, 25% the Cavs, and 5% the Warriors.
No, there's no way, Mike. I'm telling you, there's no way.
All right. Hey, look, I'm just trying to have an interesting
I might, if
thought
that
discussion
happens, I
here.
might quit the podcast, Mike. I might quit the podcast.
You wouldn't get your Golden State LeBron jersey?
No.
What number
Couldn't
would he
even get-
wear if he was in Golden State? Could he get Durant's number?
Would he buy 23 from Draymond?
Maybe. I don't know. It'd be interesting. You have to wait and see. That would be interesting. All right. So you gotta break it down to one team. Where's he gonna be?
I'm gonna say he's gonna stay in the Lakers.
I agree. Hey, is too strong. I think he's a Los Angeles at this point. I don't think he's gonna come back to Cleveland. I see that. So I think he's gonna stay in LA. All right, go ahead.
All
Next
right.
one.
I'm gonna stay in LA, Mike, and we're gonna talk Kawhi.
All right.
I think there's a 50-50 shot. He's either a LA Clipper or he straight up retires.
Interesting.
He's just not able to play. He's a weird dude. It's been documented. He's kind of a weird dude.
Great.
And he might just say, you know what? I'm just done. It's not worked in LA. And that's that. I think that's a 50-50 shot that he straight up retires, Mike. I really do. I wholeheartedly believe that based on his health, based on how many games he's played, his inconsistency in playing. Like, he might just say, you know what? It's just not worth me doing this anymore. Like, I know there's probably millions and millions of dollars that I could get if I kept trying to play, but he just seems like he's a eccentric, weird dude, and he might just say, you know what? This isn't worth it to me. And see, you hadn't even thought of that, had you, Mike?
No, I love retirement. I had not had retirement as one of the choices. Say that when you look at Kawhi, your point of him being as I was trying to go through this thought exercise with Kawhi, it was really, really hard to narrow it down to any particular team. At this point, what drives Kawhi Leonard to do? And honestly, as I look through the 30 teams, Kawhi signed with. Sure. Could he?
Maybe he wants to ride. Maybe he wants to ride Space Mountain a bunch.
Maybe he's decided that Lauri Markkanen's the next guy that he should hitch his wagon to, and he really likes the mountains. I mean, I have no idea. I really feel like he could end up where? I sense of what would drive him to go place a particular team. I'm going to say, though, somehow, some way, Kawhi Leonard is going to end up on the Memphis.
That's an interesting.
And you have him in retirement.
Well, I'm gonna say he's gonna stay in the Clippers, but I'm just saying, when I say there's 50-50, I think I've got it between like.
I like it. I'll give you credit for thinking outside the box. So we'll give you We'll put both of those choices down. We'll put retire down for
Okay.
your choice for Kawhi. I just don't. Like I said, you could make a case for, I don't know, all 30 teams, in all honesty, because I just don't think there's. Could Kawhi be a guy for the veteran, some team that's trying to win a championship? Sure. Could he be a guy who finds the 1 out of 30 teams that feels like he's worth the risk is when he's healthy and they give him contract? Sure, I could see that. Could a perennial doormat that hasn't been successful? Sure. Could I see him signing with Charlotte and playing with LaMelo? And there's nothing I would rule out. An opportunity to add somebody to their. And I know they have John, you're going to have Jaren Jackson, you're going to have.
Are you going to have Ja, though?
Max or close to Max.
Are you going to?
You may not.
Are you going to have Ja in a year?
I should have probably. But I kind of felt like
you already went. Your list was even bigger than it was supposed to be, Mike. So we don't need any more people on our list.
Well, let me just explain. I don't want to talk about Ja, but my thought process with not including Ja was Ja is going to be on the Memphis Grizzlies, but who knows? Move on. Go ahead. Give me the next guy.
All right. Let's go with Ja's friend. The guy who's not going to play 250 games in his career.
All right.
Zion Williamson. He's my 50-50. Here's my rationale for a 50-50. If he somehow manages to survive the season and not get tempted by the food and injury bug, I don't see how New Orleans wants to get rid of him. He still has a few years left on his contract, right? This isn't the end of his contract. Is that accurate?
Well, he signed the max extension, so I think he's
so
he probably has 4 years or 5.
If he has a great season, which I'm saying I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say there's about a 50% chance that he's going to have a great season and New Orleans isn't going to want to get rid of him. Then he's staying in New Orleans. If the same thing that has happened the last 3 years, that he's injured more often than not, he's not able to play, I think New Orleans kicks him to the curb. Now, where does he get kicked to the curb? Well, you got to start looking at teams that have assets that are going to want to, figure that out. And I couldn't really come up with a great team, but I'm going to think outside the box here, Mike. There's a team in the Eastern Conference that has been very, very close to a championship multiple times. And they just signed this guy to the richest contract in NBA history. Could Zion Williamson get traded to the Boston Celtics?
I mean, so trade is a Jaylen Brown for Zion Williamson trade?
Yeah.
Along with other parts and pieces that might have to go in there. I mean,
so here's my rationale, Mike. Here's my rationale.
Both teams could talk themselves into it, right? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Boston could say, if we aren't successful again this year, like, we had to sign Jaylen Brown to that extension, basically to ensure that we had something and he didn't just walk. Okay. But clearly this isn't enough. We need to do something drastically different. Zion Williamson could be that something. It'd be a fresh start for Zion. Et cetera, et cetera. Like, lots of different pieces.
Big market. Sounds like Zion doesn't want to go to a big market, right?
Yeah. No, yeah. New Orleans, on the other hand, could say, you know what? I'm done with dealing with Zion's injury and his habits and all his other extracurricular activities. Jaylen Brown has been relatively reliable, right? He's been pretty. I mean, I know he had the hand thing in the playoffs last year, but he played through it. Okay.
He's been a guy that's
super reliable. He's been probably the most reliable member of that Celtics team, right? I mean, Tatum had some injuries, and obviously Hayward, when he was there, had injuries, and other players. So he's super durable, super reliable. And obviously, he would be a good wingman to like what they've got with CJ and Ingram, right? Like I think
Yeah,
they would fit all right. I think they would fit pretty well. So I think both
Jalen
teams
Brown
talk
fit together
themselves
well.
into it. I think both
That-
I think both teams
That's a feasible
could
trade.
theoretically.
That's a
feasible trade.
I don't think
Feasible trade.
there's a with
That so
you with that
there's going to be a team that's a title contender that
hasn't been able,
thinks that the upside
ceiling
is worth
the potential
downside risk of him
being
injured,
not being basically gotten
from Zion
up
to this point in his career.
The
Plus side,
we've seen
times when he's played and been on the floor. Right. I mean, statistically, when he's on the court, he's been as good as
the all-time greatest players in the league. Really, there's a huge upside there. There's obviously a huge upside. If you're Boston, you're talking yourself into it's something different with a high upside. And if you're the Pelicans, started dealing with this guy, we don't think he's ever going to play. We know more about his medical situation than anybody else. We're going to deal him, and we're going to get a guy who's going to give us 70 to 75 games a year, and he's going to play good defense. He's gotten better every season of his career. He may not ever be a number one superstar, but he's going to be right there as a high quality number two. And maybe that makes more sense for what they already have. I think Jaylen Brown and Ingram could play together without any problem. So I like the way that you're thinking on that one. And what I tried to do when I thought about Zion is I tried to look at what's a franchise that has been bad, that has not really had a marketable superstar that they could build around in a long, be willing to trade things for a young player who, again, potentially could be one of the 5 best players in the league. What franchise would that type of guy make sense for? And I started going again towards teams that were not very good, that were looking for a face of the franchise type player. And when I look at all these teams, like let's look at conference, right? Indiana, face of the franchise right now, Halliburton, pretty good guy to build around. Orlando, Paolo, Franz, pretty good guys to build around. Charlotte, say what you want about LaMelo, definitely a marketable guy. Whether he's the guy you can build around, I don't know. That's debatable. Some people would say yes, some would say no. Detroit, Cade Cunningham there. So those are 4 teams at the bottom of that conference that they arguably already have their guy. But there's one team in that bottom part of the Eastern Conference standings that does not have anybody, has not had anybody, and has been toiling in mediocrity for years and years and years and years without anybody marketable, and that is the Washington Wizards. And I know the Wizards are just in the process of tearing down and trying to start over and get young. But to me, Zion Williamson as a distressed asset who he's going to be probably the end of this season, I think. If you could get him, bring him to Washington and get a healthy version of him, be a great situation for the Wizards. Now, if you're a Wizards fan, we're going to trade for Zion, and then Jason's definitely going to win his bet, and he's going to play nowhere near 250 games. So I understand that, but I think this move could make sense for the Wizards. And obviously, if you're the Pelicans, I'm not sure what player roster, but you could certainly get more draft equity to continue to build your franchise around Ingram, CJ McCollum, and whatever else you want to do down there. So you'd probably have to get back something in the way of a player, which might preclude this from happening. But I like the fit for Zion and his marketability and star power as sort of the face of the Washington franchise. And again, Washington, I don't care what anybody says, that's like a sleeping giant as a market in the NBA. It just feels like big city, fun city. If they could ever get it going, it seems like that would be a place that people would. I know it hasn't been that way.
City, Mike?
I think it is. I think if you're young, I think if
there's
you're
lots of corruptness, and I'm just kidding.
there
It's
is,
all right.
there is, but I think if you're a young guy in Washington D.C., I think there's a lot worse places you could end up than
Oh yeah,
Washington
yeah.
D.C.
You could end up in Detroit.
There you
Um,
go.
Sorry to my Detroit listeners.
No knock on no. So you have Zion going to the Celtics.
Well,
Eh.
yeah, I think that's a I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna go for
All
it.
right, let's just
Yes.
go for it. Come on, man. We're supposed to. All right, give me your next guy. We're already 6 minutes past our
We still have
estimated time.
Listen, this is what happens when you gave us 12 names. You said we were going to do 8 to 10
Well, come
names.
on, we haven't even gotten to 10. Some of these are gonna be. Although
Okay.
one is gonna be interesting. Go ahead.
Okay. Donovan Mitchell, 50-50 shot. He's going to be in Cleveland, or it's Cleveland or New York. I'm going to say Cleveland. I think they're going to have a successful season, and he's going to stick around. Done. I'm not going to say any more on that. I don't want to spend any time on that. You can spend as much time as you want, but that's what I'm going to say.
I think he's a New York Knick because I think that's where he wanted to be before. And I guess it depends on how we define a successful Cavs season. Are the Cavs finals? Are they going to make the NBA finals? I'm not 100% sold on that. I'd like to think it would be true. I'd like to think it would be possible. Last year's Knicks series just completely spooked me. Team can be. I don't know if that was the players. I don't know coaching. I don't know if that was. I don't know what it was. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense based on what we watched throughout the regular season. Anything else that happens, even remotely like that I don't gonna want to stick around in Cleveland to see what happens from there. Now, look, Mitchell was a big part of the problem in that playoff series, and they needed him to be the best version of Donovan Mitchell, and he was nowhere near that. He was way below what the best version of Donovan Mitchell could and should be. But regardless of whose fault it is, if that's what it looks like again, I think there's a decent chance that he ends up in New York. Now, I still think there's a good Cleveland, and I think that the Cavs could have a good season, but I'm a little bit nervous. And so if I was betting based on everything that I'm reading, hearing, it sounds like there's Mitchell wants to leave.
What if LeBron
if he
comes back? He stays, right?
I guess stays. So we'll put that caveat out there. But I'm going to put Mitchell to the Knicks. You put Mitchell to the Cavs. All right, done.
Yep.
Move on.
All right. Trae Young.
Well, I already answered that question. I think that what I see is two not so bright franchises swapping superstars. So since I had Towns going to Atlanta, I have Trae Young going to the T-Wolves.
Okay.
Done. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about with him.
I don't know who wants him. So maybe the Knicks. I mean, he played well in Madison Square Garden, right?
Sure.
Sure. Put him down. Put him. He's going to end up on the Knicks. I want to put him on the Knicks.
Okay, I like it. Well, let's go to the next guy. Can we go to Embiid now?
Yeah.
Embiid. All right. Where do you think? I think Embiid ends up with the Knicks.
Oh my God! Everyone going to the Knicks. You're thinking?
Let's team them up. Let's team them up with. No, I only have
him and Mitchell.
I have Mitchell and Embiid. I think it's entirely possible that the Knicks somehow end up with Donovan Mitchell.
Mike, you ready for this one?
Yeah, I'm ready.
He's staying in Philly. I think he's staying in Philly.
Okay, but yeah, maybe.
I think he's staying in Philly.
The question is, can he get to a better situation than what Philadelphia gives him? I mean, is Maxey and cap room to sign two near max players next summer, which is, I think, what they would have if they just let the Harden contract, they don't bring anything new in? Is that enough to maybe not? I think the question just again becomes like, what's a better situation? Where can he go where the roster is more ready-made for him to be able to win? And does he care about playing in a big market? Is that important?
I think he's staying in Philly.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Next one.
Let's go Giannis, Mike.
All right. I got one for you here first.
I think Giannis is going to be the one that ends in New York.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think Giannis is going to New York, Mike. I just something in my bones.
So you think this is more than just speculation. This is what you think is going to happen.
Yes, like this is
Okay.
what I think is going to happen. Now I still think there's a good. It's either Milwaukee or the Knicks for me.
Okay.
And just because I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go with the Knicks. I think he's gonna end up with the Knicks. I think this year the tea leaves don't necessarily look as well for him to stay in Minnesota or Milwaukee as it had last year. So I'm gonna say that he's gonna end up with the Knicks, but I still wouldn't be surprised if he stayed in Milwaukee.
All right. So let me ask you this in regards to the Knicks, and I'll tell you where I think he's going to go.
Yeah.
Are you plugging Giannis into the current version of the Knicks, meaning Giannis is the only guy that you are adding to that mix, or are they doing something else?
No, Trae Young.
Trae Young. So you're pairing Giannis and Trae Young together.
Yeah.
All right, interesting. Okay, so here's my take on Giannis. So up until the last 3 months, Giannis has been the good soldier in Milwaukee, right? He's been a guy who said,
Yeah.
I don't know if he specifically said, I want to spend my entire career in Milwaukee, but he certainly has taken pride in the fact that Milwaukee was able to build organically and take a team, not be a super team, but take a team and you trade for Drew Holiday and you've got all these guys and you're in a city that most people would think is not one of the glamour cities, one of the glamour franchises in the league. And Giannis has seemingly been very, very happy. I saw a thing today that I don't know how recent it was, but it was him talking about how he doesn't want to work out with any current NBA players because when he works out with them, then they become friends and he wants to, when he gets on the floor, he doesn't want to look at those guys as I'm competing with my friends. He wants to look at them as, I don't know if enemies is the right word, but basically that he didn't want to be friends with other guys in the league because he wanted to have that healthy distaste for them when he was competing against them on the floor. So kind of an old school mentality, which you and I have.
Here's his quote, Mike. Do you want me to read his quote?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know how to be phony. I don't know how to be fake. That's why I keep my distance because I know that if I work out with people, it takes active players. It takes off my edge and when I get to play against them.
Yeah. So well said. I think that's one of the complaints that old guys like me and you probably have about the league today, that it seems like they're awfully friendly. I kind of prefer my rivals to have a healthy dislike for each other. Most people like when you have legitimate rivalries as opposed to guys that are always hugging after the game. Not that there's anything really terrible. I understand where it comes from, but at the same time, I kind of like my rivalries with a little bit of distaste that when I lose, I'm not ready to hug my opponent. I'm maybe just a little bit upset that I lost. So I kind of like that from Giannis. But I guess my point in saying all this is that it feels like Giannis is obviously dropping lots of breadcrumbs that whatever is going on in Milwaukee, that he's not 100% sold on what they're doing. Not sold on, because obviously he had to sign off on hiring Adrian Griffin as the head coach and replacing Coach Bud. I can't imagine that he didn't want Brook Lopez to come back. I can't imagine that he didn't want them to re-sign Chris Middleton. I'm sure he's going to want him to re-sign Drew. I'm not sure exactly what his complaints are, but I do know that for a long period of time in his career that he was happy in a non-glamour, non-major market in the NBA. So my thought process is, where could he go that when superstars and where they're going to go, you have to look at just the major markets. So you're starting with the two teams, you're starting with the two LA teams, you're starting with Golden State, you're starting with Philadelphia, you're talking about all the Chicago, the big markets. With Giannis, I felt like I didn't have to do that. I kind of felt like when he's a free agent or when he says to Milwaukee at the end of this season, I got 1 year left on my contract. I'm going to leave, trade me somewhere. Where would he want to go? And where is the young core that he wants to play with? And I'm going to probably pick the most unlikely market that anybody would ever want to go to. But I think that the roster is set up perfectly to add Giannis. And if you added him, you would have a championship roster. And I think this team could pull off a trade. I think they could probably find the money to sign him outright without knowing exactly what their salary cap situation looks like. Do you know what team I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
It's a Western Conference team.
In the state of California?
It is not in the state of California.
State of Texas?
It is not in the state of Texas.
I was trying to narrow it down. I got rid of 7 teams, I think. Or
It is a team that has a first-team All-NBA player.
Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City. I could see Shea, Giannis, and then whatever combination you want to keep of Jalen Williams on the wing, Giddey, Chet. Feels like you put Giannis with Shea, and you've got an instant championship contender. And then Oklahoma City just has a ton of pieces. And I guess they probably, again, if they trade for him, they'd probably have to give up a lot of the draft equity that they have. But they've already got enough on the roster that I think they'd be chip contender. And like I said, I just think Giannis is not going to contain himself to big markets. I could see him saying, I can go to Oklahoma City and I can win. He just strikes me as the kind of guy that's not going to care about being in New York. Not that he wouldn't go there, because I think there's probably a decent chance that he does end up with the Knicks. But I also think that being in it is not going to be a make or break for Giannis like it would be for some other guys. And so I'm going to say Oklahoma City.
All right. Fair points. All right. The last 2 guys on the list, Mike, I have staying in their location. I have
Luka's going to
staying
be in Dallas. I mean, I don't see how or where he can go. I mean, I guess he could force a trade somewhere, but if he did, looking at it, obviously every single team in the league would, at his age and what he's done to this point.
Cleveland would really like having him the Cavs would really like having him, the biggest Slovenian population, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, any franchise with a guy this young that's done what he's already done. I mean, you'd clear out pretty much anybody you could clear out in order to make room to have Luka. So I would have no idea if he wasn't in Dallas. I have no idea where he'd want to go. And to be honest, we don't really know. I mean, I don't know what kind of, like, how does Luka want to play? I don't know what style of basketball he's looking to play. I don't know who his friends are in the league. It would be really hard to try to come up with another team. And I think it's most likely, especially if we just say a year from now, he's going to be in Dallas. There's no question.
And I have Siakam staying in Toronto because I don't know that there's a lot of people clamoring for Pascal Siakam.
Well, I think the thing with Siakam is there's a lot of teams that probably would want him. The question just becomes how much do you have to pay him? Like if he makes 3rd team All-NBA this year, which he's done in the past and very well could this year, now you're looking at having to pay him a max contract. I'm not sure how excited I would be to pay Siakam a max contract. At the same time, I think if Siakam was your 2nd or 3rd best player, I mean, he already won a title and he wasn't very good, granted, in that particular playoff run for the Raptors. He wasn't nearly, that was probably his, he didn't look nearly as good in that particular run as he has. But again, won a championship as a not alpha player, but certainly as a guy that was supportive of Kawhi in that championship run, maybe not to the best of his ability, but still played that role before. There's probably a contender that would want him. The question is, how much would anybody want to pay him? And I don't think you'd want, unlike a guy like Zion, there's no bottom feeding franchise that could talk themselves into hey, if we bring Siakam here, he's been a third-team All-NBA guy. He's a guy who could take a leap and become one of the 5 best players in the league. I don't see that scenario more materializing. So you're looking at what contender might want to add him. As I look down the list, Memphis maybe, Sacramento possibly could be a team that might want him. I could see Miami being interested in him.
What about Philly?
Philly would be interested. I think that there's a possibility. I don't think Philly would trade for him, but maybe there's a way that I forget. I don't know. I forget how long his contract is. I don't know if his contract is up this year. It's a question of what would you be willing to give up for him. I think it's probably most likely that he stays in Toronto. But just to make things interesting, I'll say that he's going to go to the. Let's just go with let's just put him in Sacramento.
All right, I'm keeping him in Toronto.
All right, sounds good.
Whew.
All right, so we've got it. I've got the list. I'm going to add it to the Hoop Heads
The
list
official file folder.
The official file folder, the basketball.
You should
Hoop
put it
Heads
in an
file
envelope
folder.
and say do not open until September 19th, 2024.
There you go. All right, I'm going to put the date on it just so we have it. September 19th, 2024, and then we're going to double check and we'll see how wrong we are. We'll see if we have any of these right.
Do we need to set a reminder that we did this because we've forgotten we were going to do 1 week ago one time?
Probably true. Well, I guess what I actually need to do is rifle through the folder every week before see what's in there so we can take a look at it. I actually did decently last year because I remember I wrote the over-unders and we double-checked those, and I know we double-checked all the contending tiers, which will be 2 things that we'll do again this year. And
we're gonna have to make a prediction who's winning the in-season tournament this year, Mike.
Yeah, we got to do that too. So that'll be something new. Good luck trying to predict that. I guess depends on how do they start, like the first week of the regular season, or how long into?
I think the first week of November.
All right, so you're not going to have any idea. It's not like you're going to be able to watch a month of the season and then get a feel for. I mean, look, the in-season tournament, all you're looking at, which team is there going to be a team that actually, that, and is there a team that cares?
I think the Cavs should care.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, based on maybe you want to try to get the bad taste of the playoffs out of your mouth, so you try to win that. It'll be interesting because there'll be some teams that will care, that I think you'll be able to tell that they care, and then there'll be other teams that clearly you'll be able to tell don't care. And so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think we'll definitely make a prediction on that. Although I think those will be wild stabs in the dark at best.
Well, yeah, we'll predict who wins each group. That's what we're gonna have to do, Mike.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
All right. I don't want to spend time talking about the other thing. Listen.
Can I just sum it up?
Season's over because Nick Chubb's hurt.
Browns got a Browns, man. That's all I got to say. I mean,
okay,
that was the most you could possibly have.
And Mike, would you be super surprised? I won't be honest. This is just me asking you an honest opinion. Would you be super surprised if this Sunday when they play Tennessee, they just all of a sudden they played really, really well for one game? Would you be super surprised? They just put it together for one game.
Nothing would surprise me with this team. Nothing.
I mean, the defense was so good, and we lost. The defense played so well. They had one, as you said to me, one bad play.
Right, one play, and then you give up 2 defensive touchdowns. You miss a field goal. Chubb goes down. Watson appears to be, at best, a mediocre quarterback. That seems to be his ceiling from what we've seen here.
I said to you on the phone, Mike, if Baker was the quarterback last night, we won that game. Because he would have rallied them because of the Nick Chubb injury. He would have been in that huddle, like demanding, not saying.
Maybe you can make a case for whatever Mayfield's charisma or whatever within the locker room, and I don't know how believable any of that is or isn't. I think, sure, might he have won that game? Yeah, but to this point, what's most disappointing is I don't really see any difference between Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson. I just don't. I don't think either one of them, yeah, maybe one of them has strengths that would enable them to excel in this particular game or in this particular situation. But the bottom line is both guys, at least this version of Deshaun Watson, are mediocre at best NFL quarterbacks. And as I've said for as long as we've been talking Browns on this podcast, that you're just not going to win. Now, maybe we have a historically great defense. I'm not sure that's the case. I think the defense is good. I don't think it's historically great, but you're not winning playoff games and a Super Bowl with a mediocre quarterback unless you have the 2002 Ravens defense or the 85 Bears. You're just, and I don't think we have either of those two defenses. So good luck with that.
Okay. Done.
All right, pack it in, and hopefully
I think, Mike, next week, if we don't have any news, let's just talk and let's make predictions of the in-season tournament a month before the season even starts.
Okay,
let's just
sounds
say,
fun.
let's look at each group. You write this down in your file folder. Right.
Show notes. Put in the show notes. Next week, Mike and Jason will discuss.
Yeah, we make way too early predictions because I think we can make logical guesses as to who we think is going to win each group.
Yeah, that's probably true. When you're only having to narrow it down to 1 out of every 5, I think you're probably right.
I think we can narrow that down and then go from there. Let's put that on the docket for next week. And if something crazy happens, then we can table that. But for some reason, I just feel like training camp starts soon, right? Like it's got to start. Is it August? Is it October 1 or what?
Yeah, media days. I think we're like, a little less than 2 weeks now from media today, Tuesday. So I'm guessing maybe 2 weeks from yesterday. Maybe they're on a Monday. I can't remember, but yeah, it's coming up soon.
So that would be October 2nd.
So sounds about.
I mean, you got to imagine that, we'll have some news coming out soon. Like we'll have to talk is Dame showing up to training camp and all that fun stuff. But like
is Zion showing?
It's Harden wearing a fat suit, like all these things.
All the fun news.
Is Harden doing his best Tim Allen in the Santa Claus impression? Like
is Ben Simmons ready to dominate?
Okay, so we'll have some of those discussions soon, but we might have to do one more filler, Mike. We might have.
All right, I like it.
Here.
I like it. That's a good idea. So we got it. I got it down in the show notes. All right, let's leave it there. Thank you, everyone, for listening to tonight's NBA episode. Really appreciate it. Make sure you check out all of our regular interview episodes that we do here on the Hoopheads Pod. Always a ton of great information from all the coaches that we're fortunate enough to have on. So please, and we appreciate you listening tonight, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks.